really excited to bring to the stage Amma Marfo.
Oh my gosh. I can't possibly deliver on this. You're gonna have to settle down. Thank you all so much for being here in the closest equivalent to the Scholastic Book Fair I found in my adult life. And I'm really excited that down here, we have a Babysitters Club meeting. Is it Monday, Wednesday, or Friday between 5:30 and 6? Because this is so familiar to me. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for doing what it takes to keep this place safe by wearing masks. I have not done comedy without a mask indoors in like a year, so I am very anxious right now. It just feels like when you get a text from your ex and they're like, hey, stranger, like it might be fine, but it is normal and healthy to be suspicious. So please know that I was very careful and the mask is going right back on when I finish. Because I am an anxious person. And I think if there's been a silver lining to the pandemic era, it's that we can talk about that. People can say, hey, I'm anxious. Hey, I'm depressed. Hey, I have panic issues. And I don't have to pretend. Like, I don't have to pretend that I am stoic or self-reliant. Like, I'm not a strong Black woman. I often have trouble with those doors. And I'm hard in the way that a hard taco is hard. Like, it looks great on the Taco Bell menu, pristine, but you put pressure on it at the wrong spot at the wrong time, it's nachos. And there's nothing wrong with nachos, but if you're choosing them to eat, like, they're a little bit messy, they're a little bit unpredictable, they usually, you think they're gonna be good out, and then you have them at home and you're like, oh, this is way better, and that's me. But like, people love nachos, so hopefully by the end of this, you will love me as well. So we'll see how we do. So like I mentioned, I am an anxious person, and that kind of shows up for everybody a little bit differently. For me, that showed up as being awake for the first year and a half of the pandemic. From March of 2020 to November of 2021, I was awake. We'll talk about when I finally fell asleep, but we got a long way to get there. Yeah, anytime you tell people that you can't sleep, there's always somebody who is convinced that they can fix it. Like, there are about 40 of you in here, which means statistically, like 5 of your eyes lit up and are gonna be like, oh, but has she tried? Let me stop you right there. I just said I had a year and a half. I tried everything. The first recommendation that always pops up is melatonin. There's always that person in the friend group, and I see like shaking a head. So like, you've either heard it or one of you is that person who recommends it. There's always someone that's like, oh, have you heard of melatonin? We have to talk about the Columbusing of melatonin, because everybody that recommends it acts like they're the person that discovered it. Like, oh, have you heard of melatonin? The generally available supplement that's been on the market for at least 15 years? Yeah, I tried it. It was like shooting BBs at a tank. Just, pa-choo, pa-choo, nothing. The next thing that gets recommended, because I do yoga, is meditation. So people always ask, oh, well, have you tried meditating? You should meditate before bed. Meditation's the best. And again, there's nothing wrong with that recommendation, but like 65% of meditation tracks are voiced by men. Now, we have some women in the audience. Is it helpful when a man tells you to calm down? So that, on a loop, for an hour? No. Sorry, Kevin, Christian, or Leaf, and those are the only names they have. You are not up for the task at hand. You just aren't. And the frustrating thing about this whole thing is that before the pandemic, I had this licked. I had figured it out because I was a weighted blanket bitch and I was telling everybody about it. Like, I bought one, was texting everyone, I pulled it out of my room to let people try it on at parties. Like, I was bought in. And then the pandemic hit and it stopped being a tool and it started being a trap. I was just trying to go to sleep, just stuck there lying down, and just all the weight of my insecurities plus 25 pounds of glass beads just weighing down on me. And it's never good stuff that goes through your head when you're stuck in those loops, right? It's always stuff that's inconvenient, that's gonna keep you up at night, like, hey, do you remember every single Uber driver that when you got to the airport and they said, have a great trip, you said, you too? What were their names? You remember. Start in 2016 and just run all the way through. That kind of stuff. But there was one thought loop that was actually a pretty good one. And every now and again when I was stuck, that was the one that would pop up. So again, stuck under a blanket. I don't have the force of will or the core strength to get up. And then a little voice will whisper in the back of my head, hey, remember Space Camp? That was pretty dope, right? And it was pretty dope, you guys. Space Camp was pretty dope. I'll answer a couple questions about it because questions always pop up. First of all, for people of a certain age, I did not win it on a Nickelodeon game show. I aggroed no crags, I doubled no dares, and I did not have to put together 3 pieces of a monkey puzzle. I just went to camp. I wish it were a better story, but that's all I've got for you. I also get asked, did you want to be an astronaut? A lot of people go with the goal of wanting to take space camp and turn it into a career. No, not really. I went with people that wanted to be astronauts or engineers or pilots. I went as what the space program would probably now call the worst thing you can go as, a Ben Affleck fan. I'll explain. So in 1998, we had 2 movies as a society that came out about asteroids crashing into the Earth. Deep Impact and Armageddon. We were an Armageddon household, correct? My sister's right here. Yes, we were. We were an Armageddon household. So I spent 6 days at Cape Canaveral badgering counselors about what Ben Affleck would or would not do. And turns out they don't love it when you do that. So if you go to Kennedy Space Center, talk about something else. They've gotten all the questions. I handled it. And yet, despite that reputation, you are sitting in front of the Space Camper of the Week for July of 1999. Thank you. It's not as strenuous of a process as you might think. I'll talk you through it. So the morning we were getting ready to go home, our space camp counselor, Sean, a beleaguered 19-year-old who had spent all week with 11-year-olds, just walks up to us, weight of the world on his shoulders. Maybe other planets as well, I don't know. And he was just like, I forgot to nominate somebody for Space Camper of the Week. Who wants to be Space Camper of the Week? In a sea of screaming preteens who are getting to see their parents for the first time in a week, I'm the only person in my group that heard him. I raised my hand. Step 1, done. Now, the second step of this process, which I'm going to remind you is paid for in part by your tax dollars, is taking the names of each person in those groups and then just pulling out of a hat. Or maybe it was a helmet. I was not there. But in either case, through a combination of slightly above average hearing and chance, you now have the Space Camp Award winner talking about it in front of an audience a redacted number of years later, and who still has it on her resume. And it wasn't for a lack of anybody's trying to keep it off of my resume. They did try. In graduate school, when I was getting ready to graduate, I had a professor say, Amma, I don't think you need that on there. And I said, Tom, I think I do, and I'll tell you why. What does that story tell you about me? Okay, I am attentive in the face of distractions. I will go along with a process, even if it doesn't make sense. And crucially, in this particular work environment, when a white guy drops the ball, I will pick it up and run with it. And what company doesn't need that? So not only is it on my resume, I talk about it in interviews. And I'm gainfully employed, so there you go. Anyway, after all that, great story, still not asleep. So we're still awake, still in the year and a half, awake all night. So on that list of things, I keep working my way down, working my way down. And finally, I get to exercise because they're all your friends that exercise. They're like, oh, you should exercise. You'll sleep better. Are you exercising? You'll sleep better. Oh, you're not sleeping? You should exercise. Like, that's it. And I decided, all right, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to pick something that I like, something that I'll stick with. And that was around the time that everybody on Instagram was roller skating. So I was like, I'm going to get rollerblades. It's going to be great. It was not my best idea. I know that now. It was a great idea when I bought them. It was a great idea when I bought the accompanying pads because I'm not as young as I used to be. It was a great idea when I was in my driveway lacing up the skates. But then I stood up. And something in my body told me, you're not the 8-year-old that used to whiz around the cul-de-sac for 4 hours without getting tired. You're the 34-year-old who hurt her foot walking to the mailbox last summer. Not tripping on the way to the mailbox, not falling on the way to the mailbox, just walking in flip-flops fast enough that my left foot said, all right, that's enough for you, buddy. But I'm up on skates and I talked a lot of shit on Instagram, so I gotta follow through on this. And yet, that's not even the part of the rollerblading experience that I'm convinced is gonna get me killed. Because the third day that I had these skates, I am teetering around the back of my neighborhood. Again, I mentioned I don't have the core strength for this. I had to rebuild it. And a wild turkey wanders in front of me, looks me in the eyes, and poops. That turkey's gonna kill me, right? Well, and yes, for some of you that might seem like a leap, like, oh, a turkey pooped in front of you and now you think you're gonna get killed. Well, I'm like 90% sure that the turkeys in that neighborhood have already killed, so yes, I do think that's what's gonna happen. I'll let you know what I saw. You let me know what you think. So that first spring of the pandemic, like the snow had started melting, the sun was coming back out, and I was like, I gotta be outside. So I was taking walks in the neighborhood, and I walked up on a neighbor's lawn, and there were 6 turkeys huddled in a circle, and they all turned and looked at me at the same time. Now, when 6 creatures who were descended from dinosaurs, as you may remember, all turn and look at you at the same time, it does not matter what you thought you were doing, it's time to go. So I just was like, yep, gentlemen, I don't know if I interrupted an AA meeting or a craps game or what, but I was like, I'm off. No problem. A week and a half later, I walk up by that same lawn, 13 turkeys, and a for sale sign. Guys, what did they do? Long story short, I no longer live in that neighborhood. The turkeys weren't all of it, but they were part of it. And the thing about talking about turkeys on stage is that everyone sends you videos. I don't know how to make them stop. Anytime someone sees a turkey, I get a video. But the good part of this is that's how I knew that the turkeys in my new neighborhood are a little bit more my speed. So someone sent me a video of 2 turkeys in Brookline, Massachusetts, chasing an Amazon delivery man off of a lawn and into his truck. Now, we're all old enough to know that, like, it's okay to have a nemesis. Sometimes that gets you through the day. And you know how sometimes you've just decided that that is the person you hate, but then you find out you have something in common, and you're like, well, shit, now I have to rethink everything. That's how I am with the turkeys, because, listen, capitalism, we're near the end of the run, right? Like, we did our best, but, like, it's time to shut it down. And there's all this conversation about tax the rich, get rid of the rich, eat the rich. These turkeys are prepared to eat the rich. And I respect the shit out of that. So even though now I'm pretty sure that turkeys are going to be the thing that takes me out, like, that's probably what's going to happen. I can't outrun them, certainly can't outskate them. I've kind of just come to peace with it because I'm going to get murdered by somebody I respect. And, like, isn't that all you want? Like, I'll just end up on the road in Brookline, Massachusetts, getting pecked at, feathers flying all over the place. And with my last dying words, I'll just say, I don't like this, but I respect it. And that's how I'm going to go. So, with that in mind, still not sleeping. That's nightmare fuel right there. And again, y'all keep sending the videos so the nightmares keep coming. But it's okay. I'm not asking you all to apologize by name, but some of you are here and you know who you are. But there's good news on the horizon, because Thanksgiving of 2021, I went to Iceland over Thanksgiving, and it was a great trip. Iceland and Denmark. So I got to go to Legoland, so right there, happiest kid adult you can imagine. I got to spend the equivalent of 2 days in hot springs, and something about that, being powered by geothermal energy, combined with codified gender equality and sensible gun control. Can you believe it? I was able to sleep in Iceland? Jason, you saw it. That was wild. So I got back, and I happened to have a doctor's appointment scheduled the next day. And I was like, listen, I just got back from Europe. Here's everything that I did. I was finally able to sleep, and this has been a problem for like a year and a half. What can I do to bring that back into my life? Like, keep it with me. And my doctor said, I'm paraphrasing, the best we can do is Lexapro. So after a year and a half, 15 milligrams of Lexapro was the solution the whole time. We did it, everybody. Fantastic. We did it. So it was great because I was able to kind of do a little bit more as I was vaccinated, open my world up a little bit. And in February, I finally got to go visit my parents. They live in Africa. I hadn't seen them for about 3 years, since well before the pandemic. And I was so excited for it to finally be safe enough, for the borders to be open, and for us to be able to go. But I was also a little bit nervous because I went with my sister and my new brother-in-law. My sister got married during the pandemic. And if there are any of you out there who are the older sibling, who have younger siblings who are already married, and you get all those questions from like your aunts and uncles and older cousins of like, are you next? When are you bringing somebody home? When's it gonna happen for you? So every time we get in the car to go visit relatives, I'm sweating. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to answer all those questions. Like, it's a big source of anxiety for me the whole time I'm there. And I can now report, on the other side of a week-long trip, there were no questions. People have stopped asking. That's how old I am. And those of you that are a little bit younger and you're like, oh, I hate it when they ask, you're going to have some feelings when they stop, let me tell you. And at first it was really difficult because it's like, the people that are supposed to believe in me most have just given up. But I sat with it a little bit longer and I was like, no, you know what? I'm not giving up. I'm waiting. I grew up in the South, so I've been going to weddings since I was about 19 years old. I'm in my mid-30s now. Round 1 is wrapping up. I'm a second-round draft pick, you guys. I'm second wife material. So my time is coming. We all had time to get to know ourselves over the course of the pandemic. Here's what I learned about myself. I am romantic, but I'm not naive. I am smart, but I'm the kind of smart that doesn't mind telling men that they're being stupid, which I'm told is off-putting, but I'm too old to change at this point. And I'm cute enough, but I'm in no danger of getting pursued by Pete Davidson. So, like, I understand what I'm working with, you know? The best way that I can describe it is I am a minivan of a human woman. First, I should specify, not a sports utility vehicle. Can't stress that highly enough. I am not splashing through streams. I'm not scaling mountains. Vans are not an athletic shoe. I am in the breakdown lane with a minor inconvenience. But think about it this way. Practically nobody goes for a minivan as their first vehicle. All right? DJs, shitty drummers, and youth pastors. That's really it. Which, no, and creepy. But minivans are a vehicle you come to realize that you need over time as your lifestyle comes to meet it. So I am just waiting for the guy that needs something sturdy, dependable, willing to help move a couch if asked. And like, if there are just a ton of cracker crumbs and empty seltzer cans all over the place, like, you look past it because it gets you where you need to go. That's me. Your 1997 Ford Windstar of a woman. Thank you. And this strategy, mixed results. It's getting mixed reviews, I'll say. Fun fact, first wives don't really love it. Second wives love it. And that's how I know I'm onto something. But the big question regardless is like, well, you might end up with kids. Is that something you're okay with? Yes. I'm going to say yes. Here's the thing. I think about kids a lot like I think about boats. Like, if you're going to invite me out on a boat, I want to go on your boat. I'm excited about it. I will dress accordingly. I will talk about boat stuff all day. I don't need to have a boat. I don't need one. Like, they're always expensive. They dictate where you live, and they are always wet or sticky for some reason. And I'm told I would feel differently if it were my boat, but I don't know, it seems fake. Anyway, am I okay with having kids? In that capacity, sure. Like, we like the same snacks, we love the same TV, I have no interest in manufacturing in-house, and you're telling me that I can outsource that? Like the auto industry? There's no downside to that plan. So, listen, there are some people here that are a little bit younger, still in that process of trying to find who they're gonna be with, and I'm not trying to say that I don't want you to have your coupes or your convertibles. I do. I want that for you. But if you're willing to think about another pathway, I have 6 seats in the back. We are going for certified pre-owned, and we feel pretty good about it, actually. Yeah, so jump on in. So as I was trying to figure out how to live with anxiety and like incorporate medication, do a bigger plan, I was listening to this podcast where Gabrielle Union was talking about her therapist saying, make a list of 10 things that make you happy, and then try to do as many things on that list as possible. Feels like good advice. Just pick the things you enjoy the most and make sure they're part of your life. And I haven't finished my list yet, but just more than half of that list is Vin Diesel doing karaoke on YouTube. If you've never seen Vin Diesel do karaoke on YouTube before, oh, you're missing out. It's excellent. And it's a great example of something that I've kind of always aspired to. Like, I have no real interest in being famous, but there's something that celebrities can do that I also want to be able to do, which is if you're really good at something, collectively society will let you do something else that you're not as good at, but you like, just for fun. I'll give you a couple examples. Former President George W. Bush is an accomplished acrylic painter. I don't know if you know this. He has published books of paintings. He had an exhibit at the Kennedy Center. Is he good at painting? He's pretty good at painting. He's a better war criminal, but he's a good painter. Blake Griffin, currently of the Boston Celtics. I don't know if he has work tonight. I invited him to come here. We'd know if he was here. He isn't. But, and I did. I was like, if you don't have work, you can come. Anyway, he also does stand-up. And yeah, he does. He's actually pretty good. I don't know if he's being rewarded for being good at basketball or for waiting as long as he did to date a Kardashian, but whatever the reason, he now gets to do stand-up. Michael Jordan's done it twice. Like, he was so good at basketball that we were just like, sure, you can play baseball. Go ahead. And then, sure, you can be in a movie with the Looney Tunes to let us forget that you played baseball. That's fine, too. So good at basketball that he got to do 2 extra things. So now we got to come back to Vin Diesel, who is good enough at singing about family values and being the only person to not like The Rock that he gets to do karaoke on YouTube. And it's a fascinating selection. Like, he picks things like Rihanna, Tovolo, Sam Smith, things in his range, you know. And whenever I talk about this, and I talk about it a lot because it's fascinating, people always ask, is he good? The YouTube comments are split. Like, the people don't know. The best thing I can say is just imagine it in your head. You cannot overthink this. Whatever you're imagining is exactly correct. If you're enjoying it, then it's good. That's really all I can say. But listen, I'm the person who occasionally kind of struggles with confidence and like dealing with imposter syndrome. Vin Diesel doing karaoke on YouTube has cured my imposter syndrome. And it should cure all of yours too, because listen, and this is not a knock, by the way, like, he is excited to do it. He has so much fun. And I'm like, why am I afraid to speak up in a meeting? Vin Diesel just finished singing Habits by Tovolo and was like, everybody needs to see this. So, like, when you go to work next week, like, wake up excited to contribute. Like, just don't wake up happier than a bird with a French fry. Wake up happier than Vin Diesel with a microphone. Like, you're gonna go so far. And yet, I'm feeling a lot better. We've done a lot of work. It's been a long journey to get to a place where I feel confident and can deal well with my anxiety, but it hasn't fixed everything. Like, there are still some situations that I have no idea what to do with. Catcalling, great example. I thought after the pandemic we would be done with that. Like, I was like, are we done? We're not. I was coming back from a trip. I was coming back from South Station, walking. I was in like sweatpants, shapeless outfit, and a mask, and still got catcalled. And I was like, sir, congratulations on your imagination, or apologies for your desperation. Like, I genuinely don't know what you're responding to. And this is something, I actually have a solution for this one. This was devised prior to the pandemic, and I think now we can bring it back out. If you can walk and eat and don't care about looking hideous while you walk, no one's gonna catcall you. I learned this walking in downtown Boston, and an unhoused individual catcalled at me and was just like, hey, where are you going? Do you have a second? And I just like panicked for a minute, and I told him the truth. I don't have a minute because my friend's office is having a nacho party and it finishes in half an hour and I have to go. That was the truth. I work from home, and I saw that friends had like a nacho fountain at their work party, and I was like, how much longer is the nacho fountain out? And my friend messaged me, it was like an hour and a half, and I was like, I'm on my way. And by that point I was running out of time, so I was like, I have to go. And he was like, well, can I talk to you another time? Do you want to get dinner? Which, for me, being the type of person I am, that's like the love and basketball of catcalls, but like I really did not have time. I was like, I have to go. So I went, partook in the nacho fountain. It was a great time, and I was eating nachos on my way back. And nobody said anything, including the same individual who was so excited when I was on my way there. So, light bulb goes off. I think it's the eating. So what other foods are good for this? Great question. I can answer that for you. We talked about it earlier. Hard tacos, of course. Because nachos are what? Hard tacos that couldn't handle the high-paced work environment that they interviewed for. So that's one. Salad is another one. I had the misfortune of sitting across from a friend when I was eating salad at a conference, and he said, you looked like a dinosaur. And I tried to take him at his word and be like, oh, like Sarah from The Land Before Time, the cutest of the dinosaurs? But then I assessed his tone, and the tone was more like the beginning of the second Jurassic Park when that little girl gets eaten by the velociraptors. Like right before they turn and go like, yeah, it's safe to go back to the island. Like he sounded more like that. So that's another option. So nachos, hard tacos, salad. And in a pinch, if you don't have any of those things, but you do have a backpack, run with a backpack on. Nobody looks sexy doing it. So I have a strategy to get through the possibility of catcalling. But my mom wants grandchildren. She's not thrilled about it. So I built in a fail-safe for her. If I am employing one of these catcalling deterrent mechanisms and I get catcalled anyway, that guy has to marry me. He does not have a choice. Because think about what he's really saying with that. He's saying, I have looked beyond just a hideous exterior and seen the beautiful soul within, and I want it. And I'm gonna let him have it. I am. I'm just gonna say, listen, if you loved nachos on Boylston Street, you are gonna get really into rotisserie chicken over the kitchen sink. You're going to love it. So that's it for me. Thanks everybody for being here. Hope you enjoyed your nachos.